So college football is about to change a little bit. It's going to become a little bit more like the NFL, and for a lot of people in sort of big time college football, they say it's about time that this has happened. We've seen the ACC play around with it, and now the NCAA has its football rules committee has proposed that this particular technology that I'm going to talk about right now goes through, and that is that communication from a coach to player is going to become legal in college football. So this has been the case in the NFL for decades, but all three divisions of NCAA football, so that's Division 1, 2, and 3, are all going to have the capability to do this. And in addition to the coach communicating with usually the always the quarterback on offense, but usually a linebacker or perhaps a DB, a secondary safety in on the defensive side of the ball. This will allow for calls to be just talked in. No more sign stealing. No more, you can thank Michigan for this rule. But the ACC was kind of moving this way to begin with. Here's what the NCAA's Rules Committee wrote in a press release. It said, in games involving bowl subdivision teams, each school would have the option to use coach-to-player communications through the helmet to one player on the field. That player would be identified by having a green dot on the back midline of the player's helmet. So you see this in the NFL all the time, actually. It says the communication from the player to coach will be turned off with 15 seconds remaining on the play clock or when the ball is snapped, whichever comes close. So typically, it's rare that in the last 10 I almost never see in the last 10 seconds that people are still getting plays in. The defense is this is going to affect, I would imagine, the defense more. They're still going to have to go hand signals. That would be my guess, particularly if you're audibling out of things. You're just going to have to kind of go with the flow. But look, this is way overdue in big time college football. Like in Division II places, I don't think you really need to do this. It's probably a fair amount of money, maybe 20 G's. I really couldn't speak to that. It's also going to have the capability for players and coaches, everybody on the sideline, to have 18 active tablets for use in the coaching booth, sideline, and locker room. Tablets would not be connected to other devices to project larger additional images. Now, you see that a lot in high school. You see a lot of I see screens in high school. In other words, sorry, got off the subject here. Tables could not be connected to other devices to project larger additional images and could not include analytics, data, or data access capability or other communication access. All team personnel would be allowed to view the tablets during the game. So, this is going to move forward in 2024. This will affect the 2024 season. It's an important, progress towards really where society is and the way these kids speak and learn. I will be curious to see what happens, and I've seen this occasionally in college football where like headsets just don't work. When one side doesn't have their sets working, the other one has to go away. That's my understanding. Now, that I could actually be wrong about that now, but that was always the rule. So how does this affect Georgia? What will this matter in the future? Well, I always thought the best Jake Fromm was Jake Fromm that went fast. Like 2-minute warning Jake Fromm guy. He was really good in those moments, it felt like to me. What Carson Beck, I don't think that doesn't seem to affect him as much. But teams that want to go fast, Auburn, Oregon, folks like that, this is going to give them, to me, a bit of an advantage. We've seen Georgia go fast occasionally. It's not a lot. Then again, a lot of their games are not competitive in the second half, so that's sort of goofing some things up for my comparison there. But I think on the defensive side of the ball, this could have some challenges to it. in my opinion, this helps the offense. But I will call around and see what folks that I know in coaching say about, is this gonna help one side of the ball or the other? But the defense reacts to the offense, for lack of a better way to put it. I mean, sure, you can blitz and you can scheme and all these things, but the offense, cutting it off with the last 15 seconds, that's to me, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, I've talked about this a lot, and if you've never watched this channel, I mean, I played basketball in college. We always had to go hand signal, but then again, you can hear typically on the court from the bench. Typically, not in every situation, but typically. So, our number one play when it got down deep in the play clock was fist. All fist meant was our best player, and you see this a lot in college basketball, our best player would simply get a screen at the top of the key and, play pick and roll basketball. It's the basics of basketball. For football, I think it's much more structured in many ways than basketball is as it relates to calling plays and all this stuff. You've got, variables off of this, that, and the other. Basketball does too, but it's more fluid than football, I guess you could say. I think this is probably a good thing, but it will change. It will give an advantage to the offense if I had to guess. Teams like, I'm just Western Kentucky, who just try to score as many points as they possibly can by throwing the ball, stuff like that. I think it will help people like that. Oregon. If that's your style of offense, that this is going to help you. That would be what I would say about it. I also think it shows that the NCAA is listening to its, its members. This is something, Michigan brought us this. The scandal, the cheating scandal at Michigan, brought us this action. And as I said in the past, the ACC has tinkered around with this during bowl games. And I think it's a good thing, generally speaking, but we don't totally yet know what the unintended consequences of this will be. I'm sure they can scramble the signals. They do that already, but there's a lot of data floating out in the air in college football games. Y'all don't know it or see it, but we're restricted from what channels we can use on the field. There's stuff like that goes on. So, I'm sure they'll get that part right, but there's a lot of television, and television uses wireless all the time. Anybody who has and they need to be in one particular place, but often they move around on the sideline. Anybody that's using 5.1 stereo surround, those the sound that they're picking up there is almost always wireless. So they have a wireless code, and I'm kind of getting to the weeds here. I'm sure they will not all be on the same code, but if you can steal signs one way, with analog, you can steal them in digital too. So I don't think that this will prevent that, but I do think that's what got us here. I wonder who pushed this. The ACC almost never takes the lead in anything, but it does seem like they did here. And I think that, Clemson doesn't really go fast. Florida State tries sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, even though I keep talking about the offenses, this is probably just, it's 2024. This could have happened in 2004. So that we're waiting this long to put something into place. This is probably well overdue. I think it will give coaches who have very good relationships with their quarterbacks the ability to calm them down in particular moments. The play clock in college football is not what it once was, so there could be some stuff going on with that as well, in terms of how you manage getting stuff in. But there's kind of no excuse anymore for coaches not getting the signal in or getting the play call in. You can, 15 seconds, that's a ton of time to get up to the line. And so I think it's very curious, but this will affect college football for sure. Now there's some other stuff coming that was recommended as well from the NCAA that I'm going to talk about in other videos. But I think generally speaking, that's important. I do want to touch on one other thing, because this is sort of a hot topic sometimes on Dawg posts, on their message board at least. And this is what the NCAA College Football Committee, Rules football rules committee, easy for me to say, about uniforms. There's always a lot of jokes on dog posts about yoga pants. I don't know if guys know what yoga pants are, guys. Typically, yoga pants go to the ankle. But anyway, in recent years, this is from the NCAA. In recent years, the committee has expressed concerns about the look of players' uniforms, specifically pants. The committee is proposing a stronger enforcement structure for clear violations of the rule. On the first violation, a flag will be thrown to indicate a warning for illegal equipment, and the offending player would have to leave the game for at least one play and could return when the issue is corrected. Any subsequent uniform violation by any member of the team will result in a timeout being charged to the team. If a team is out of timeouts, it would receive a 5-yard delay of game penalty. So skill guys, you have been warned. I mean, I've seen this with Brock Bowers. A lot of the younger guys, for sure, a lot of the younger skill guys, they just don't want to wear knee pads. And what starts happening is the pants, so to speak, are just shorts. And I mean, I don't care personally, but you know, I get there is a look in college football, and they want that look to be uniform, I guess you could say. Everything in basketball is getting shorter and tighter, which was the exact opposite of what it was for, you know, the 20-ish years from my playing days to the 10 years after that. Now everything has become tighter and tighter. In football, it's just that the shorts specifically are much shorter than they were. There are a lot of guys that simply don't wear knee pads, and I'm not. This is not judgment about that. That's just what it is. And I guess the committee is recommending these proposals. The only thing I get worried about with more rules is that they will get called kind of dumb in a dumb way. This should be addressed before the game. I mean, we often in basketball, you'd have to have your shirt's got to be tucked in. When you're playing, you know, your shirt's not always going to be tucked in, and it needs to be uniformly, you know, applied. In the other sport that I played in college, you know, tennis, we had plenty of issues with officials all the time because you never knew if they were watching, you never knew if they were on your court. I mean, it was so stupid. So what I would not want to have happen here is it comes up during a game. Just handle it ahead of time. You know, often officials check cleats, other stuff on guys before games. Obviously, we see this a lot in baseball where they're checking mitts and gloves, or as my daughter calls it, a catching glove. So I think I get a little bit jumpy about that one. I think the players and medical probably know how to handle padding. I'm worried that is something that's going to be sort of unnecessarily called. But we'll just see. But anyway, that headphone, that communication from coach to player, that's going to matter.